everyone, and welcome to the Snow Horse Marketing Podcast. Today we have Ben with us. He works with Robot Kittens, LLC, and marketing-related software. Thank you, Ben, for being here with us today.
Hi, it's great to meet you. Oh, not meet you. I met you before, but it's great to meet everyone else on this lovely cold winter day.
Oh, yes. The weather is turning. Just so y'all know, we're recording this in December, so we are freezing right now with our teas.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, I know as we were speaking earlier, decided to do this podcast. We both work a lot with interactive and dynamic, like changing marketing trends. And I know we both do the focus of you want the user focus, the audience focus of what you're doing. So just to dive in here, tell me a little bit about your experience, what you've seen in the marketplace with businesses wanting to hop on trends versus having that long-term strategy. And what have you just witnessed there as you've gone through your marketing journey?
Absolutely. So, yeah, just a quick background on me. I worked in the ad industry for a long time, over 20 years, and I've also worked as a software developer for over 20 years. Robot Kittens has been in business for more than 15 at this point. But I've seen the gamut. I went into marketing before, when interactive advertising was, of course my cat wants to join in. When interactive advertising had just sort of started forming, people were still thinking about print and TV a lot. And one thing that hasn't changed over the years is that there's always a trend every year that people are chasing. And I think, for example, past years, a couple of years, we were really focusing on chatbots. I noticed I also am a serial entrepreneur, and when you go to networking events, everybody's talking about AI, and it may not even make sense for what they're doing, but they think that keyword is really important, so they're going to throw that in there and talk about that. Sorry, but this is going to be distracting.
You are just fine. You are just fine. Felines are always welcome.
He's got radar for meetings. My cat has never once interrupted me during my day when I'm not on a conference call of some kind.
They know. They always know.
Yeah.
So we have one of my colleagues. She has two little cats, and they're in their teenage phases right now. And so they keep like attacking each other when she's on calls or attacking the new tree.
Oh my God. Well, I love pets. That's not a related topic, but I'm a big pet guy.
Working remote, we all got to know the pets. It's fun.
Absolutely. My favorite thing is always, the dogs that come in, but cats are good too. Anyway, so I believe we're talking about different trends.
Chatbots, AI.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, for example, someone says, hey, we're going to really solve this with AI. And from an interactive space, using new things and using new technology is always helpful. But if it's doing it just to do it, I think, and no matter what we do, it doesn't make any sense. I think when we do something, it needs to be meaningful for our users. And if it's a chatbot, that generally could be very meaningful for users. But if it's just that you're doing it because it's the latest trend, then you're not doing it for the right reasons.
I feel like a lot of times in business, you can identify the businesses who are desperate and the businesses who are established or have a direction, confidence, by how they're interacting with the trends. Like, I know for our own business, something we talk a lot about is we do the crawl, walk, run approach whenever we're trying something new. Obviously, we want to test it out, see if it's a good fit, test something that's maybe similar before we implement it, like company-wide or platform-wide or user-wide. Just because we want to make sure it's a good fit. Whenever you hear someone always talking about like the new thing and they're implementing it across the board immediately, I always get a little wary about that because, just having run businesses, and you have run multiple businesses yourself, how much time it takes to integrate something into a new system, right? It does. It takes a lot of time. It takes trainings. It takes taking the data from the users who are coming in to see what is the best option and is the solution an effective solution.
And very frequently, when you don't pay attention to the user experience, you may not even be aware of what's going on. I was really surprised yesterday. I was in so I do, as custom software solutions, we do a lot of things that may be not, not typical, right? So for example, just last week, I did a project that was for a podcast launch, but there was an email system. So rather than using MailChimp, we actually constructed a system that you could use through your own personal Outlook, but it still had all the same tracking and analytics and everything. But it required, like you said, some training for people to go and use the system to send it from their own email boxes. And in that process, I found that people were just unfamiliar with Microsoft's UI. They didn't know that the thing in the top left corner meant that it was a menu. They thought it was some logo. There's things like that where you've got major players out there that don't realize sometimes, it's the design aesthetics overtaking the usability. I think there was a big study years ago about, when the mobile menus first came out, and I think people are pretty familiar with them now, but when it first came out, you actually had to have the word menu on there because people really didn't know what that was. And you were seeing the data of people only, coming from Google and only going to one page and then not going to others. And then as a marketer, you have to try to come up with like, why is that? But unless you actually talk to somebody and talk to your users, sometimes you may miss things like that.
Oh, completely agreed. I feel like so many businesses are just chasing business. They forget who their customer is. They forget their clients. I know for ourselves, like we just did a branding shift earlier this year because we talked to our clients and found out what was working. And I feel every business can take advantage of that and see what's working. I mean, even there's so many tools to even do it for you as well. I love Hotjar. There's a lot of UX things to see. Are they even interacting on the website in an effective way? I remember also to your point about the different platforms, when Google did the redesign of their Google Drive logos, like everything became that little rainbow and very similar looking. And there was all the memes like making fun of it. This is when design over functionality takes over, right?
Right.
And it really is like it was quite the learning curve for most people to know how to do the different shapes, to know what the symbols meant, the little waffle at the top, the little squares at the top. And you want to make things as user friendly as possible. Like I know even within our own company, we're implementing a new payment process just because we found an easier way to do it. And we know it's going to be 90 days of trying, applying, applicating. Then we onboard the different clients into the new system. We know it's a process. And I feel like so many people are chasing the solution, or they want to trust one thing, like Facebook ads is going to solve all of our sales problems. Well, it could help. It's a piece, right? It's not going to solve the whole pie, but you'll have a piece of that. You'll get more traffic. You'll get data to help educate what the next step should be. Those are the pieces that you're going to be getting from that experience. And I feel like so many businesses, I don't know, are maybe unwilling to go through that process, and they're chasing what's shiny. And that can also be dangerous in the long term, at least at what I've experienced.
Well, I think the other piece of it too is sometimes we go so far into the data that then we end up forgetting that there are actual people behind that data, right? So, for example, chasing a KPI can be helpful. Obviously, you need to have things that you want to achieve as a brand and conversions that are helpful for you. But if you do it to the point where it's annoying and it's not useful, like that, you could actually drive people away. So the branding piece is huge too, as I'm sure that you're a major player in that space. Having brand trust isn't just about having a really sleek look and having the right voice. Sometimes it's also just about being mindful about your customers as people as well. So it's definitely hard to find that balance of how much data do we use and where are the getting people what they need and increasing your sales really, but making sure that they're really comfortable and feel invited and trusted.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it's definitely important to make sure that you are that trusted brand. I know a lot of what we do for companies that have some marketing that it's established for them, some of our larger clients, is they come to us for we call social proofing, right? We want to have ads certain places, you want to get reviews, the reputation management is also very important, but also the usability of your site, also the usability, what people are saying about it. If everyone hates how to log in, that's what everyone's going to talk about, right? And people might avoid it. And I think it's a great opportunity to hear about the people that you're actually connecting with. We do this podcast to make sure we get good information to our potential clients and existing clients. And I think it's really important to make sure you have that human connection. All sales, all business is people. It's people solving problems, creating connections for other people. And when you lose that, it's why everyone hates going on LinkedIn and getting all those spammy messages, because it's not a connection, it's someone chasing a KPI. If I send this many emails and this many cold contacts, I'll be able,
Oh yeah.
And when you have that customization, like I know on our site, even when we do cold outreach, we do a lot of customization and we get much higher returns. Like it's worth the time and effort, but it does take time and effort.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting with with advent of AI. I think people are even more wary. At least I know I am when I get, when I get custom messages, even sometimes like, oh, is that an AI generated one? I I think people are seeing AI where it isn't even existent a lot of times. I was doing a project with some Dolly Parton AI thing that never got off the ground. But what was interesting was in that process, Dolly Parton had recorded like 600 variations of something, and it was all completely unique. But when I went on social media, people assumed it was AI. And I think people see AI everywhere, even where it isn't. And so then it makes it even more important to make sure that everything you're doing is truly authentic, I think. I got a message yesterday that the town I am in throws a rubber ducky festival, and so they kind of randomly threw that in. And when I went into ChatGPT, I mentioned my town, and they mentioned the rubber ducky festival. It's just like, what is that? Now that's a flag for me. Like, oh, if someone says something about that, it's probably an AI generated message. So it's tricky because you do want custom experiences, and that's what omni-channel marketing and everything is about, seeing how people want to be catered to and what's that level of catering to a person. But now the newest challenge is then that making sure that it is authentic and human. Or maybe not. It depends on the brand. There may be brands where it's perfectly fine to just have a very small amount of customization that's relevant. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I think it really depends on the industry. Obviously, we have what's called, dynamic ads. If people come to a website and they're getting dynamic ads, I don't think the messaging needs to be particularly custom because what they were looking at on the website is already being distributed to them. I do think a lot of people need to be wary of just using one tool to be writing things. It's like the old adage, like if you're gonna be taking information or like copying information from something, you want to translate it 3 times, right? It's one of those things that you want to translate it 3 times. So whatever you're getting from ChatGPT, like you want to translate it 3 times. An actual person wants to go through it. It's not just this one-all solution. It just took a lot of effort off of getting to the solution. I know many of our salespeople use a software called Lavender, which is an AI tool that helps with writing emails, but they still, after putting in the information, we still have the format that we prefer to communicate, and then they take the piece that they like from it. It's like piecing things together so that it works. It's not that this is the catch. Again, it's the desperation, it's the catch-all, everyone looking for like the quick fix. It's not. Usually the fix is messy and there's multiple steps, and you want to make it as simple as possible to follow those steps. But if you just trust one thing to be your catch-all solution, most people end up disappointed, or they end up being flagged as spam, or they end up being, disingenuine, or they lose the trust with their community. It becomes a whole thing.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is finding that balance. It really is finding that balance. But that's a good point about, chat GDP in general, like anything it does, I think you have to go in and have as a real human and go in and really think about, is this the right thing? Is this what it needs to say? It'd be very easy. I've developed tools before where you could go and say, okay, here's my information, and I want you to go and scrape 5,000 websites and find out that website, that person, what's unique about them, and make a message that caters to them. And you can do that and generate it and go out, and you may get a return. But then I guess the question is, ethically, is that present you as a company that doesn't actually care about people? It's an interesting is an interesting area.
Yeah,
For sure.
I'll talk about a challenge we had. So when we first started building in-house sales teams here at Snowhorse, everyone was recommending, obviously it's like a popular thing, to outsource to call centers to do our cold calls. And so we tested it. We tried it. We tried it with 3 separate companies. All of them was not a good fit because the way that you get success with those companies is dial, like huge volume of dials. And we found like it's not leaving the reputation we want. Even if someone's not a good fit or not interested in our services, we want them having, not be left with a bad taste in their mouth after they talk with someone representing our company. And so we actually decided to pull away from that, and we won't, I mean, nowhere in the near future would we ever try that again. Just because we attempted it, we experimented with it. Again, we do the crawl, walk, run approach here, and it was not a fit. We're like, this is the effect that it's having. Like, yes, we can get some closes off of it, we can get some appointments off of it, but it's not always good. It's why I'm always a little cautious of like lead gen sources.
Mm.
Lead gen could be really effective, but you want to be very careful with it, where it's coming from, it's not being exhausted, make sure it's quality, all those things. But yeah, that's been my experience. I feel so many people are just looking for a quick fix that they're not willing to get in the muck and figure out something that's actually going to solve the problem.
It's funny. It's just taking me way back, but because over the last couple of decades, we're still fighting the same battles in a lot of ways. I was thinking about one of my first jobs was at Wonderman, and I think they've recently renamed to something different. But back then, the whole thing was about, they were a direct mail company. They were becoming digital and everything. But when you're doing a direct mail campaign, their goal, their KPI is get someone to open that envelope. You send someone mail, they don't open the envelope, then you failed. And then what you end up with is a lot of gimmicks, and you could be very misleading. And I get mail like that all the time. If somebody sends you a mail to try to trick you into opening it because you think it's a bill or you think it's, something else, that's not a brand that I want to be, because it doesn't create a trusting relationship with someone where you're basically trying to trick them right out of the gate. And I think that philosophy carries through, into the digital age for sure.
No, it's the clickbait approach. I mean, it's been around for centuries, called different things in each generation, but the clickbait approach, it can work. I mean, it really can. It's something that can be effective. But is that, I mean, I guess it depends on what someone's goal is. If their goal is to just get some quick cash and, sell for 2 or 3 years, that can work. If their goal is to build a brand that's going to last 50 years or 100 years, it's not going to work. And I know even with the mailing, I come up with a traditional background in marketing. There's a lot of shift back to mailers, just because of the AI, the distrust that's happening there. But again, to your point, some of the mailers are very dishonest. And if anyone's trying mailers, I recommend do the most, just do a postcard that has your information on it. Just do something that is simple. Be in a local print. Maybe you have a hometown values that's good for your product, or maybe there's a local business magazine that would be a good fit. Coming across as professional is really important. A hustle stage is important and necessary for every business. But it's important to come across professional. It's something we talk about with our clients all the time, the social proofing, making sure you're on multiple platforms, making sure you're consistently, that's why people say post consistently organic. Yeah, very rarely will lead to a lead unless you have a huge audience.
Mm.
But it shows people when they look into you that you're a real business, that you're legitimate, and that you can do what you say you can.
Absolutely. It's really, I think the plumber analogy is a good one. If you've got, an unmarked white van and you're going and doing a job, you know, you don't already walking in the door, you don't necessarily have that trust. But when you've got, the nice car with the printing on it and your license number on there and everything, you've already established trust, and then other people see it, and you've got, sort of not word of mouth isn't the right word, but you've created awareness where someone else may call you just on the fly, or a neighbor says, "Oh, I see that, you've got that," and they call you. So yeah, there's branding in all things for sure, very important. And I think, even with I agree with you that I think print, postcards especially, it's especially with like, ad blockers and all these other things, and just the banner blindness, and people are getting messages where it makes sense. If you've got something relevant and people notice it and they can take action on it, that's great. I think the part that I focus in on is like, hey, where does that connect in a useful way? So like, for example, if you've got dynamically printed QR codes that if you scan that, it will pre-populate the form for you or make it easier for you as a user to kind of get through. I love doing those kinds of things. I don't like doing I would say unhelpful interactive, where it's just trying to force something down someone's throat versus giving them what they need. So if you can get a conversion quicker by having it connected to a printed piece or otherwise, I'm all for it.
No, that cross marketing is so effective. We see it all the time. It's something we often recommend to our clients. It's so important to have that credibility, especially in this day and age where it's so easy for someone to scam. It's so easy for someone to distribute things that aren't accurate. You want to make sure that you are an established, credible brand. But well, I'm so grateful that we got a chat today. I feel like this is an important conversation that isn't had very often, how to make sure yourself stand out, make sure you're advertising to the right people, listening to your audience, and make sure that you're speaking to them as people. So I appreciate you joining us today and talking about that and sharing some of your experience. If someone listening would like to learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Definitely visit my website, robot-kittens.com. Feel free to reach out. You can also email me at ben@robot-kittens.com. And love to help you sort through your marketing related challenges. And a lot of what we do is create software for behind the scenes as well. So if you're needing to create variations on content that are digitally generated, like the QR code thing, for example, we're happy to help out with those kind of technologies.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks again for all of our listeners listening in. Bye-bye.